We're going to do a whole bunch of movies from a whole bunch of different places today. Before I start, I wanted to thank Tom Brooks for sending me a donation to the Let's Help Bill Buy More Stuff He Doesn't Need fund. So it was greatly appreciated and greatly immediately put to use. It's amazing how stuff, on eBay, things like, oh, there's a drought, and all of a sudden here comes
I'm in the fridge.
So it's just kind of interesting. Today I got a bunch of movies in that are of different types. I think I've mentioned my film scanner can do 8mm, Super 8, and 16. And I saw an ad a little while ago for an 16mm World's Fair film, but it mixed in a box that you had to take the whole box. And the guy said, I don't know what's on anything else. And it's actually been kind of interesting to see some of the things that are on here. So if we get the time, we're going to see the World's Fair. We're going to see the Thousand Islands in New York in 1929. About the same vintage, the Lookout Mountain in Tennessee, beaches in New York, and it's just kind of amazing to me how well some of these things hold up. If you figure this film's from 1929, it's almost 100 years old, and I look around here and think about all the other technology that we have, CDs, DVDs, and everything. Nobody's going to be able to find something in 100 years to play these things back, but it's fascinating the old films can. So the first one here is going to be the opening day of the 1939-1940 New York World's Fair. You'll see in it everything is marked 1939 because mentioned in prior talks, it was never planned. It was always planned to be the 39-40 fair, but to get around the Bureau of International Exposition rule of one season, they called it the 1939 fair, and then oh, we're done and we're coming back for 1940, and what are you going to do about it? So in this particular one, it's called an official film, and was a licensee that did souvenir films that they sold at the fair and also mail order. So let me share the screen here. And I have to, let's see, optimize for video. So we'll do that. Okay. Now, in these particular ones, I've done some digital cleanup on this. I've not had the chance to physically clean the films, which takes quite a while for the 16mm. But I did find a copy of this, actually 2 copies on online. I'm happy to say that this one came out nicer than theirs. So here's one of the entrance gates. This is over by Chrysler. Here's the Long Island Railroad entrance into the fair. Pretty large size station. And everybody's coming in. It's the big day. They're finally going to open this sucker and show us what they've been building out here for the last 4 years.
It took them 4 years to build it?
About that, to get the grounds ready and to build the buildings, yeah. That they had to do a lot of ground preparation because it was still a garbage dump when they started.
Yeah.
There's a Helicline and the Perisphere. Then a whole bunch of the unions that probably helped build the fair come out and participate. Oh, one guy get back in line there. He probably ducked off the kids or something.
Didn't the early cameras have sound with them?
Yes and no. Amateur ones hardly ever did. Professional ones did. This particular film was sold without a soundtrack on it. When I get to the next step of the process, I'll probably add some marching music or something to it.
Could it be like this was like a newsreel where they would read a script to?
They just sold it to you this way, so you would take it home, and it's on a, just a reel of film, and here it goes. There's no description other than these subtitles that we'll see. Like here's Grover Whalen. I would have loved to have this guy's job, the official greeter of New York. He had also been the police commissioner and all sorts of things. So he had quite a run. So we have the participating nations marching through. They're at the Court of Peace. It looks like it was a pretty well-attended day, doesn't it?
Yeah, like in 64, it wasn't raining.
Yeah.
Funny, when they opened the World's Fair in Philly in 1876, it also rained heavily that day.
Depends on the time of year, I guess. There was a little bit of a controversy that broke out that Roosevelt's mother came with him, and she wanted to be up on the dais with him, and he had to go and get a special VIP tour and park her off to the side.
Yeah.
They went out of their way to make it easy for Roosevelt, who was a victim of polio, to get out of the car into the grandstand area. All these stands and everything they're on were temporary, were built just for opening day and then taken out.
Yeah, no.
I don't know who he is, but he's getting a nice welcome in. He's saying to the lady, "Help, they've kidnapped me."
Bill, I'm noticing that it's not a really highly focused film. Do you think that was just the quality of the film of the day, or is it just because of the age of the film?
I think it's probably the fact that it was a dupe. You know, they just turning out hundreds of copies of these things. So I think it's held up pretty well. I think in looking at it, like if you look at it on the scanner when it goes through, the edges of it, see, it's not curled or anything like that. Like I mentioned, I found two other copies of it online, and theirs were really fuzzy. You know, I don't know what they shot them or scanned them on, but this came out nicer. But yeah, it is on. That's the trouble when you get into any any mass-produced thing. You make one copy of it, and then you have to make multiple copies, and you wonder how many times these negatives got used to make them. Now I could go through the computer. Those are not the Goodyear blimps. The U.S. military was actively using blimps at that time for anti-submarine warfare. I could go through the computer and crank up artificial sharpening on it. I looked at it and tried doing that a little bit. It kind of gives it some artificial artifacts. I may go back and do that again because I do intend to take this film and clean it and get some of the dirt that you see bob through it from time to time.
That's the Washington statue that kind of went poof after this, as I recall.
Yep, they were going to cast it in bronze, and then they decided they didn't have enough money for it. It actually required a bunch of repair work between the two seasons for them to fix up some stuff. I mean, they built all these things out of gypsum, and the weather was tough. By the end of the fair, most of the statues by 1940 were really, really far gone. The trouble with that statue also being done at gypsum was that kids love to carve their names and stuff into the base of it. So I've got some shots of people standing there with, the typical, heart, like BC loves CC, sort of thing in it. Again, all these look like marble or, granite or whatever, and they're all done out of gypsum.
It's a pity. Pity someone didn't cast them before they put them out, so that, or you can have a mold that you could use later.
Yeah, you would have thought so, but they, you know, the only thing that survived on some of them are little maquettes that the artist worked from.
Mhm.
Well, what they depict, I'm wondering how many people would recognize somebody taking a file to a scythe, but they just showed on the farm worker.
Yeah. So here, the U.S. Pavilion and the grandstands are not there, so you can tell these are shot at different times, different days. After the fair ended, a number of these buses ended up going up to Michigan to a defense plant, and were used to carry airplane workers from their cars in the parking lot into their ship.
It looks like Greyhound designs fair specific vehicles.
Yes,
as
they
opposed to
did.
New York 64, where they were just
Yeah, they actually did fair specific back in 33, 34 in Chicago as well. So yeah, it looks like each fair they came up with a different design to get people out there.
Predecessor to the glider ride.
Yeah.
Pretty bus.
yeah.
Yeah, you'd like to know if any of them still survive today anywhere. Well, you can see the old car going by. We're going to come up with a film in a few minutes that's really, really going to put Brock to the test.
I wasn't around then.
You wonder what this guy's pitching or what he's selling. They had a number of these little stands around, and people would be doing different things. So it looks almost like he was playing a theremin or something. Now that's how to see the fair in comfort, huh?
That's like a Barco lounger. Those are huge.
Yep. This is their version of the escorter.
It's like the old rolling chairs in Atlantic City.
Yep, yep, very much that way.
You gotta feel sorry for the guys pushing them.
Luckily, the grounds are fairly flat, so that's a plus. And I have pictures of them doing it for the 33 Chicago Fair, and there were some women that went out there that were just enamored, that they fell in love with the guys pushing them, which were all local college students, a lot of them from a local college swim team. And the notes the gals made in their diary was about how much money they spent going for repeated rides until the guys finally asked them out.
Yes, a Golden Gate Exposition, they kind of made note of the fact that those chair pushers were mostly college athletes from the Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
First Futurama.
Yep, yep.
So I guess they put those canopies over those walkways between seasons, or later in the first season.
Could be, yeah. I think they keep finding things that you need to fix and change and improve. As much as I love the 64 fair, if I do get the time machine working, I think I'm going to make a pop back here.
People who went to both said they preferred they preferred the 30s, well, the 38.
Yeah, my mother and father definitely said that they had both been to the 39 fair. I think my father maybe once or twice, my mother a couple times. My father was a New York City fireman, and he got a free pass to go in, so they went a couple times. But you know, when we'd walk around the fairgrounds, you know, I was seeing the empty fairgrounds in the 1964 eye, and she was seeing it in 39. By the way, whoever had this film broke it in several places, and they at different times spliced it backwards, so all of a sudden everybody was walking backwards. Then spliced it so it was reversed left to right, so all the writing was all done in reverse. So I had to splice this one about, I think about 6 different times to get everything back in the right direction. And you try to figure out, how did you possibly do it where when you do it and you don't notice that all the writing is backwards, upside down, that sort of thing.
Well, plus when you're doing the editing or splicing, you should notice the emulsion side.
Yes, yep. Well, that's actually interesting. I was doing one yesterday where we're going to see, here's the giant cash register. So they had a pretty good day there that day, 84,000 people. I was doing one yesterday of the beach, and the flat side was not very flat, and that had broken, and I needed to do the same thing to put it back together. And I finally had to take a magnifying glass and say, okay, here's what's happening here, and here's what's happening there. I'll put it back together. But very, very shiny on both sides.
Yeah, I think some of the like Agfa and more less popular brands were kind of like that. Kodak was especially Kodachrome was really easy to see the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
emulsion side versus the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what film stocks these are on. I looked at it trying to for some of the on Kodak, there's usually an edge code that you can go into. It will be like a circle, a triangle, and a square, and you can look up on a chart and say that was 1937. And then there'll be another one, you can look that up. But some of these other no-name ones don't have anything on there, so it's total conjecture on when some of them were done.
I'm wondering about the frame rate at these films because some of the action looks a little slow to me.
Yeah, well, slow to me too. 16 millimeter silent was supposed to be at 16 frames per second, and that's what I set the transfer here on. I am going to go back and experiment it and step it up to 18 or 20 or so, how it looks. But I thought the same thing. Looks a little on the slow side. I didn't have time once I did it and everything to get everything ready for today, so I went with what I had. Like yesterday, I had a pretty long day. I started at 5 in the morning with Boy Scouts, and then I went out on patrol for the LAPD, and I finally finished my day at about 12:15 in the morning.
Gee.
Now here,
I got here.
better, so it's hard to know.
Are the scouts out there assisting in support with the fire?
Out here, no. They're basically anybody that was supporting with the fire had to go through a background check because they were so concerned about looters and everything else. So
Right.
even if I was going to the fire site, I just can't show up with my LAPD badge and say I'm here. You have to go to what we call Operations Valley Bureau, say I'm going to go down, and then they validate that you're allowed to go. They've been very strict on that. So let me jump to another amateur film this time because I promised Expo 67. This one, we start with Laron, the amusement area. It's got some nice shots of some of the rides in that. There's, of course, Montreal in the background. Again, no cleaning done on this. Oh, this ride is called the Rub-a-Dub ride, like Rub-a-Dub, 3 men in a tub.
Early form of the rapids rides that we've seen.
Yes, yeah, but you stay pretty dry on this particular one. But kids are having fun. That snake there was a giant slide. You would go up in that building with all the funny shapes, go into the tail end of the snake, and come sliding down out of its mouth. And here's the what the heck's the name?
Gyratron.
Yeah. Which again, great building, looked really great. The ride was less than exciting. There's the Spiral, Spiral, however it's pronounced in French, which was bought from Expo 64 in Switzerland and brought over.
It's like Coney Island.
Yep, and I think we're gonna see Coney Island coming up. If we see if people can recognize the beach or not. So every
Expo,
World's Fair had to have a sky ride. Oh, we're looking at the marina right now. There's the ship store up to the left where you could buy all sorts of things, and that's the weather station, which gave the official Expo 67 weather forecast. So there's their tram. That was not the Greyhound. They didn't get that that contract for Expo 67. That's the safari area down below. We're taking the Expo Express over towards the main part of the site now. Molson's great. They used to give a great factory tour. I don't know if they still do. Jacques Cartier's ship or replica of it. The theater off to the right hand side there. And the U.S. Dome. And they made a big point that these doors were carved out of, I think it was cedar wood. This was interesting to me. The Route 12 Street. You don't find many of the street signs that show up in the pictures. Like in the 64 fair, you see all sorts of Avenue of Commerce, Avenue of Progress signs, but the Expo signs were a lot lower key for helping people find their way around. There's a guy walking way down at the bottom of the frame here in front of the boat, and he's at risk of falling into the canal. He's not supposed to be down there, which is why those chains were there, but he just had to go down and get that picture. Here's Kaleidoscope. And sign for Kaleidoscope with the Judaism pavilion behind it. There's Ethiopia. A powered gondola. You can see how nicely they move. They don't have to pole them like they did in the real canals of Venice. That arch apparently was this one I haven't cut out this section we're so dark was a actual antique arch moved from a ancient city as opposed to a modern reproduction.
Bill, did the Flying Indians appear at Expo 67? Can't remember
Oh,
the
they
name
did
of
not.
that.
No, they went from 64, they skipped this and they ended up at Hemisphere.
Right.
Yeah, they're big at Hemisphere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that.
Sponsored by Pepsi, I think.
Yeah, there were.
There's the pulp and paper pavilion, the one shaped like the trees, and keep an eye at the very end of the film. There's fun footage there that I think is kind of unique.
Those modernistic trees for pulp and paper were supposedly the most photographed thing at Expo.
They were
Or-
really unique. What I love about World's Fair is you'd never build a building like that anyplace else, right?
Yeah.
Imagine the architect getting the commission and free reign.
Oh, crazy. Mhm.
Long line for Czechoslovakia, the USSR. The most expensive pavilion at the fair. Try to get some inside shots, but I'm gonna rescan it. I'm gonna really crank up the gain on the scanner and see if I can pull anything out of these. Looks like a good sized crowd that day. Kaleidoscope looks more colorful than we saw it close up before. Cosmos Walk with the mini rail going across it. You can see how crowded that thing really got jammed up at times. And we get to see a giant engine. My guesses were inside the US SR Pavilion, but I do not know for sure. Now to Iran and the official time clock. So it's getting ready for lunchtime.
Fireworks, gorgeous.
Yep. Good crowd for all these pavilions that day. And as you look at this one, they're repairing the fire damage done at China. So they've got it blocked off and truckloads and scaffolds, people going in. Phone booths, whole bunch of them. Today, of course, you probably wouldn't even put in phone booths at a fair, would you?
So you'd have charging stations.
Yeah. And there, look at the hosts and hostess costumes for pulp and paper. So it's real quick, but I don't think I've ever seen pictures of those particular costumes before. So I was glad to see them pop up. So we're going to take a look now, folks that you may or may not know where the Thousand Islands are, but they're a set of islands, and it's probably close to 1,000 of them in the St. Lawrence River between New York and Canada.
And this one has sound.
I added the sound for this particular one. So if you get a chance to go to the Thousand Islands, it's absolutely one of my favorite places. If I had the money, I would definitely get a summer place, because it's not a place you want to go for winter.
Yeah.
This freeze is absolutely solid. As a matter of fact, a lot of the houses that you see on the islands, they wait for the freeze. They drive everything over on trucks to bring all the lumber and everything, and then stack it up there, and then come back in the warmer weather and actually build the house. I've got to show this film to a guy I went to college with, because he's from Alexandria Bay. I'm sure he'll get a kick out of seeing it in 1929.
So, for those of you who have been, does it still look like this?
Yeah, it looks a lot like it. Now, that big building on the left, and I think the one right here are gone. A lot of these things over the years have burned down. But Alexandria Bay is still a kind of neat little town to go to. You can walk through it down to the water, and you can take the boat tours out around it. It's a fun spot to go. One time we went there, and they were having some big jazz festival, and my God, it was impossible to get a room. Bolt Castle, by the way, guy Bolt built the castle. He took an island and had it reshaped in the shape of a heart. Built this massive castle out there, and just as he was getting it finished, his wife died. He was building it for her, and he never went back to it. Just pulled all the workmen out and didn't finish it. It sat absolutely abandoned for many, many years, until finally the authority that runs the bridge that goes across the area took it over, and they've been restoring it room by room. And you go out there now, it's really spectacular. But just like at the end of Citizen Kane, all the crates of stuff that Citizen Kane had, well, this guy Bolt, the same sort of thing. He had stonework and furnishings and everything that they just abandoned out there on the island and walked away from it. Amazing story. If you get to the Thousand Islands, you have to go see Bolt Castle. It's really great.
Bill, what city would you fly into that would be closest?
Oh God, the closest small, I guess Messina, New York has an airport. I don't know how much commercial service they have. The largest real big one in the U.S. would be Syracuse, and that's 3 hours away. Right there, the international date line goes, or not date line, boundary goes right smack through that bridge there. There's another interesting castle on the area there, Singer Castle. which I think it's called Dark Island. But it was the the guy that built the Singer sewing machine fortune. And you go out there, and of course you've got displays of Singer machines and that. But his had been finished. Oh, that boathouse on the other side there, that's the boathouse built for Bolt Island. He had so many boats, he didn't have space to keep them all on his island, so he built that other boathouse. This again going by the edge of Bolt Castle here. That was this particular building, bowling alley and a playground for the kids.
Now, Bill, that castle relative to this film age, when was it built prior to this?
About 10 years before this.
Okay. Had he abandoned it by 1939?
Yeah, 29, right.
Okay.
Somebody cuts right in front of our boat. And can you name any of those cars in the ferry?
Old cars.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just kind of a cute little look. I enjoyed seeing it because Carol and I have been back there a number of times. It's a great spot. Whoever had this film then tacked on this film at the end of it. So
It's also technical divers go up there a lot also.
oh yeah, that in that St. Lawrence Seaway, there's some of the big ships that came through, they did not make it, and it's kind of weird to think that you're over, at one of these giant freighters, or tankers or anything down below. I've never dove in that particular area. I prefer warm water, and that's definitely going to be a dry suit sort of area.
Yes,
Yeah.
I treated one or two divers who made some mistakes up in the St. Lawrence. It is only for highly skilled technical divers. Recreational divers would never, ever.
Yeah.
The water's just so cold year round.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it freezes solid, and you can drive trucks, I mean, big trucks across it. And it's very, very cold. Any particular time of year. I've swum in it. When we stayed at a hotel that was on the St. Lawrence River, you go up and swim in it. But it's definitely like being in your backyard swimming pool. So this is anybody hasn't been there, and Beth has probably been there numerous times. Lookout Mountain's a great spot right outside of Chattanooga. You can go up to the top here and get a nice view of the surrounding area. I don't know who had the job of getting the cannons up there, and I don't know who you'd be shooting at. You wonder if you shoot a cannonball out, what kind of force it comes down with from that altitude. It's got to be not something you want dropping in on your head, that's for sure. The Lookout Mountain is there's a lot to do right around that particular area. There's a rock garden, under a waterfall that's lit up underneath. We're going to see here scenes of the mountain and just looking around the area. But then we're also going to take an exciting ride down the Incline Railroad. This is the sort of thing I get convinced myself that somebody came and put that up there to, con the tourists, but I guess it's natural. When I lived in Massachusetts, we had a big rock called Balance Rock, and it was a big thing. Kids who went out there always trying to push it off, but I guess it does happen that the glaciers just carried a giant big rock and left it on top of a smaller rock, and they nestled well together. It would be fascinating to go back and take this footage today and see how built up this area is and how everything compares.
It is very built up, but there's still a lot to see there. Rock City is great. Ruby Falls, the Incline Railway is still there. It still runs. There's a good barbecue place at the base of the Incline Railway called Purple Daisy or something like that. But yeah, this is all still there.
This was fun to do. The Incline Railroad is closed right now. They had a major fire, and they had. Luckily, it did not burn the building, the station at either ends of the cars, but it took out quite a section of the track, and they're hoping to have it open by spring of this year. It was an interesting thing reading the post-mortem on the fire, and they tried to figure out what caused it, and they said they had a rock slide from due to a rainstorm. The rock slide went off, and as the rocks came down the hill, they bounced off each other, set off sparks, and caused the fire. But you can see, looking down this thing, it's quite a steep hill, and here we go.
Bill, is this your music?
I just threw this in. I figured it was
Yeah,
sort of
no.
fitting.
I wonder where you found that.
Found it in what Pinnacle Studio has a thing called Score Fitter, where it automatically generates the music of whatever length to picture footage. So the other car coming up.
Is it propelled by cable?
It's pulled up by cable and it goes down basically pinned by gravity, with a cable and brake system to keep it from going too fast. You see it goes right by these people's houses. So that's our visit to Chattanooga. I was able to figure out the exact date on the Thousand Islands one because it had the name produced by so and such. I looked him up online, and there he was in a directory of motion pictures being released that year. So let me see where I put these others. 1 second.
Those cable cars, they're counterbalanced. One goes up as one goes down. They balance each other, and they pass right at the midpoint.
Yeah, if all goes well.
Can I ask the obvious question? Was Thousand Island dressing, did it come from Thousand Islands?
No,
No.
it came from the Waldorf Hotel in New York City,
Oh, okay.
and it was something to do with having 1,000 things floating in your salad, just like the Thousand Islands upstate New York. So there was a name. It was named after the Thousand Islands, but it came from Waldorf Astoria in New York. Okay. So this one, it didn't have any label on it. And this was another one he had upside down, backwards, was all sorts of stuff all over the place. If anybody can recognize for sure exactly what beach we're looking at, please do let me know. But we're going to see there's a boardwalk, people on that, some big hotels. There's a big pier off to the side. Definitely some different type of bathing suits for whatever this period of time is. Not going to see any bikinis today. The suits like that for the boy appear to be fairly common. The police making sure everything is going well. Looks like an artist up there selling his wares.
It's not Coney Island, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely not Coney Island.
I'm thinking of
Because-
somewhere on the Atlantic coast from the architecture, but
Yeah, Atlantic, but not New York, not
Mhm.
Coney.
Not
Yeah,
Atlantic
I
City.
never knew if Coney Island back in the 20s had a pier like that or not.
Not sure I can find out.
So many things burned down over the various
Yeah,
times.
and now they're putting plastic lumber
Yeah.
composite on the boardwalk.
Okay, name them all, Brock. Go ahead, start.
Board.
You can get any color you want as long as it's black.
I was gonna say, as I said earlier, old cars.
Yeah.
Are you able to make out what that sign says on
No.
that, looks like on that hotel?
No, I could not. There's some signs that we can read coming up later on, but they were also of no help.
Yeah.
Like here, I have no idea where these people are. We're gonna see a sign for religious ceremonies coming up. But they're certainly all well dressed.
I've got the answer.
It looks like Goshen Grove, New Jersey, with that
That's
big
it.
cathedral.
That's it. And that's the Great Hall that you saw with the
Yeah, the
clapper.
Great Hall, it's Ocean Grove with those
I-
mansions like that.
Goshen Hall, New Jersey?
Ocean Grove.
Ocean Grove.
Okay, great.
That's
thank
the
you.
Great Hall.
Just south of Seaside Heights.
No, it's not even that far south. It's adjacent to Asbury Park.
Yeah, Ashbury Park, that's right, Ashbury Park.
And that hall is all wood and it's bigger than Radio City Music Hall. I've been to 1 or 2 performances there.
Yeah,
That's
it's still
great.
standing today too.
Like I said, you can.
It's a
see
concert
it.
hall? Oh,
Yeah, but it's probably for religious ceremonies. The
I see this.
Methodists, it's a Methodist campground. My grandma used to go there for with her buddy during the summer, and they have, I think, a 6 or 8 week period that have mostly devotional kinds of things associated with it. And I guess it's nominally Methodist. It's probably open to anybody who wants to go, though. It's pretty neat. They've got a right around this thing that's called the Great Hall. In fact, Woody Allen used the outside of it in one of his films. There are planks that are like platforms that have a very, very small cabin thing in it. And on the front of it is a canvas awning and roof that's unfurled. So when the season is over, people just pack up everything into that little boxy like cabin, including all the canvas. But during the summer, during that 6 to 8 week period, those things are all out there, and they've got chairs, and it's kind of really nice, to tell you the truth. It's a fun place to visit.
It's an interesting town. On Sunday, you're not allowed to drive your car. They actually put gates across the streets.
That went to the Supreme Court. They refused to let cars into the town. They would lock the gates up, and finally somebody challenged the town for doing that, saying it wouldn't allow delivery of newspapers and it interfered with free speech. And then they opened it. But that's how strict the people who went to that place, including my grandma, were.
Wow.
It's funny how strict that town is, and right next to is Asbury Park, which is the total opposite atmosphere, and they border on each other.
Very,
Yeah.
They are different, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Both
if
fun in their way.
If the movie, the Woody Allen movie, would that likely be Purple Rose of Cairo?
No, it was an earlier one.
Okay,
It was an earlier one, and I'll do a little digging, see if I can answer that for you.
great. Yeah, because I know he did Purple Rose. He used part of Bertrand's Island from New Jersey, so I didn't know if he was still doing it. So it's like I said, it's nice you can pick up some of the details on signage here. All set. We got to go to the camp meeting.
Yeah, the nickname of the town is Ocean Grave.
I don't know who he is, but he's certainly being well received.
You're talking about those little cabins. They're occupied all the time. They're hard to get. There's hundreds of those little cabins around the great auditorium.
Okay, Brock, which one's this?
Again, it's before my time. I didn't study cars then.
Oh, it's a police car.
Yeah, it's police car.
Yeah.
You can say maybe nobody else could drive on a Sunday, but the cops are sure there. So I just love the signage is so low key. It's just a small little line under the driver's
Yeah, I
window.
was gonna ask you, how did you tell it was a police car until I looked
Yeah.
closer, yeah.
police department, and then yeah, and now that you told me what it is, I can read it. Police Department, Goshen Grove, New Jersey.
Well, if Pixar's right, it would be a Hudson.
Look at the
Al-
size
also-
of that car. Oh wow.
Also in Ocean Grove, you weren't allowed to go on the beach on Sunday either.
Wow. Now I assume this is New York City.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, New York.
If anybody recognizes any of the buildings, please let me know. Glad you were able to tell me about Goshen Grove. Thank you very much. So I enjoy these chats. You learn all sorts of things. Look at those cars. Aren't they great?
Probably most of those buildings aren't there anymore.
A lot of them, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think any of those buildings are still standing.
Yeah, I'll share this in an old New York group on Facebook and see if people can help recognize it. It's astonishing. People, instantly jump in. Oh, that was so and such, and my grandfather worked there.
Yeah, that's 70 Pine Street.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all still there, and that's Foley Square.
Oh, okay, great.
That's
There's
your
the
Liberty.
Statue of Liberty.
That's still there.
Yeah, ferry going by.
I was just in the city Wednesday night in Chelsea, and it has dramatically changed.
This is kind of fun. I don't know what they're all doing here, but they come running on these boats, and then they got to get the boats out of the water, and so they have this tackle system set up, but they use a kind of different way to get them out. You can see there's rails going into the water, so they slide them up on a trolley. They're trying to get the boat up on it now.
Oops.
Wooden
Out at
railroad.
Jones Beach, they do the fire rescue contest, but they don't use boats that big.
Yeah,
So these could be fishing. They could be line fishing in the area.
could be, yeah. But then let's use the horses to pull them up. Anybody recognize that one?
Grant's tomb. Might be Grant's tomb.
Isn't it a little big?
I don't think that's quite his
No,
town, no.
We're not.
I haven't seen it in years.
That's not the city anymore. We're
Yeah,
somewhere
you're
else.
right. Not New York.
It looks like whoever owned this just spliced different cities together.
Yeah, probably whatever time he was taking whatever trips. This is somewhere, I think, upstate New York. It's probably like the Hudson or something. It doesn't last very long. Again, somebody will recognize and go, oh my goodness, that's so and such. That's the trouble, of course, sometimes people are just totally wrong and make things up. So it is fun to see what people can spot. And we leave our travelog behind. So let me hop over to a different drive. This one I have not done any work on to basically color sort or anything like that. You're going to see images at the top or bottom. The way the scanner works is it can get the whole scan in there, but then it picks up a little bit of the frame before and after. And the other ones you've just seen, I've gone off and I've cut out the top and bottom of it. And this one is, again, just as raw as it comes out of the scan. We're going to go through I believe right now we're at Yale. We're going to go to Yale and MIT. So we're taking a tour through New England. And this was 1954. This shows you how well Kodachrome shows up. I mean, this is totally unretouched, raw scan. So the sign there, make sure you go in through the high street door. But this is absolutely unfiltered, changed, or any way from 1954. So I think it's held up very nicely. You can definitely see where they talk about the Ivy Leagues here, right?
Mhm.
I gather nobody here went to Yale, so they can't tell us exactly what building we're looking at. We have a friend that graduated from MIT, and when we first met him, he said something about he went to MIT, and I said, "Oh, I went to MIT too." And he was, "Oh, what year?" And I said, "Oh, whatever. I was only there for a hockey game or something, but I went to MIT." He actually graduated though, so. When I work on this more, I'll try to work on some of the lighting in that. What I've got to do is re-scan them sometimes several times because you got to crank up the gain for things like this one, but then if you do it too much, you blow up giant ones like this.
Yeah, we're in Plymouth right now.
Yep. But is it PLIMOTH like they had it, or PLY? It's so confusing. Oh, there's the famous rock.
Bill, they spell it both ways. It was always confusing when I lived there.
Oh, did you live there?
Yeah, we lived in Groton, Massachusetts for 12 years.
Oh, okay. You must have gotten a Mystic Pizza.
Yeah, actually not. A lot of other places though. Lived in the North End of Boston for a while.
When Neil was looking for colleges, and I was at Groton a lot for the Navy, but I never heard of
Different Groton.
Oh,
That was Connecticut. Yeah, we were in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was in Connecticut, right? So when Neil was going to college, looking for colleges, he had okay, see if we can name any of them. He had a perfect 2400 on his SAT, so he was getting invited to the Harvards, the Yales, the MITs, all those. So we visited a bunch, and we stopped in. We took the tour, went to Groton, Connecticut, to the sub base where I worked, and showed him that. And then we went to Mystic Pizza, and it was really good. They had obviously the movie made it famous and everything. But Carol and I've gone back there again, and sometimes you go someplace that's good, you go back next time it's disappointing. We enjoyed it. So if we're up in New England this summer, if all goes well, we may end up getting another Mystic Pizza.
Bill, I didn't want to break in, but Studebaker just drove by in that one.
Oh, okay, great, thanks.
Did you ever go to Abbott's for lobster?
I'm not a lobster fan, so no.
Oh, okay, because it's right down the road from Mystic.
You're lucky you don't like lobster. It's too expensive to buy anyway.
Yeah, well, they go up to Maine, man. It's everywhere.
It's
even
just as expensive there.
Yeah.
It's the same price up in Maine.
So I have no idea what we're visiting now, whether it's these people's summer home or cottage or whatever, but considering how brown and everything is out here, I'm looking at all these trees getting cabin fever. I feel like going back and visiting, but they won't have any leaves on them now.
Yeah, it's tick season right now.
Yeah.
We're getting fire warnings around right now.
Oh, wow.
Where's that at?
Well, I'm in New Jersey, but not too far. I guess there's something about dry conditions. There will be rain within the next day or two. I don't know if that'll take care of
We're
all
the
of it.
same here. I'm in North Carolina. They got a fire warning up. The humidity's only 20% right now. And it's sunny and warm. We haven't had a rain here in months.
Nobody recognizes the waterfall, I take it.
Backside of water.
Yeah, covered bridge.
Wonder if that's up in New Hampshire.
Could be. All it said was New England, 1954 on the can.
I was thinking of that too. There's a thing up called the Flume Gorge that's a little bit like that, but I don't think it's got a bridge across it like I saw.
Bill, saying you don't like lobsters, like saying you don't like hot butter.
Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah, my husband always says lobster tastes just like butter.
Yeah.
I like butter. Certainly, I like throw it on a baked potato or anything like that. Just never been a big fan about lobster.
You like crab?
Like crab. I enjoy crab. I like shrimp.
Crab's my
Maybe it was,
favorite.
How about
maybe
abalone?
it was maybe like cyclo. There's the flume.
We,
Yep.
it's funny. We had abalone for the first time in Hong Kong, I think. Yeah.
Did you like it?
He loved it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's when I was
loved it.
growing up in Santa Clara, California, there was a little coffee shop. The lady used to make fried abalone for the lunch special. Her husband would drive over to Santa Cruz and pick it up fresh, and then she'd bread it and fry it. Oh, it was so good.
Mm-hmm.
You can hardly find it anymore, though, with all the restrictions on harvesting it.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, diving, you have to make sure when you brought it back that it was the right size or that sort of thing. And they can be a real bear to pry off the rocks.
Yeah, I always found it interesting, how Pismo Beach was noted for its clams, but any of the clam chowder you ever bought there was not made with Pismo Beach clams because they couldn't harvest them commercially. So you weren't allowed to sell them sell it in restaurants. It was only for personal use.
Oh,
What kind of clams are they?
I don't know exactly. They're very fairly good sized clam. To keep them, they had to be about 5.5, 6 inches across.
Oh,
Wow.
They're very
they'd
large.
That's a
be
big clam.
horse clams or
That's
probably
Oh,
horse
yeah.
clams. Yeah.
Yeah, they were very big and very fast in the sand. It was amazing how you could
Yeah.
use these forks and you hit, and then you try to go under them, and they're already gone. It's like, how do they move? Sandworms.
We had clam guns, and it was a big cylinder, aluminum, and with a handle on the back end, and so when you see the bubbles come up in the sand, you just shoot that thing down, as far as you could, and then you put your fingers over the holes and you pull up, the sand and hopefully a clam.
Yeah, you had to
sounds like
use
a lot of work.
a pitchfork thing
It is.
here.
That's an East Coast thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't do it that way in West Coast at all. It's completely different.
Yeah, you see.
Yeah, it's a pitchfork.
Yeah,
Long
and
Island, they go out
rakes too, right? We used rakes on Martha's
Rakes.
Vineyard.
Yeah, rakes is what they use on Long Island out in Sound.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, those are smaller clams too, right?
true.
Couple,
Yeah,
3 inches.
yeah, and you have to put them in. Is it clean water? I think we put. Yeah, just they had to soak in clean water for a week about before you could eat them.
And Carol and I were up in Nova Scotia a couple of years ago. We took a
Oh,
cruise
neat.
stop up there, and it looks a lot the same today. Not a lot of building and everything up there.
That's really high on our bucket list, places
Yeah,
to go.
Me too. Yeah.
We enjoyed it. I had always wanted to see the Bay of Fundy with the tides and everything, and that was as spectacular as it was billed.
It's interesting.
You go there in the morning and the river is flowing one way, and you go for a bus ride, you come back in the afternoon, they stop at the same spot and show you now how the river is flowing the other way.
Bill, we did
that's-
that when we did that one year. We drove way out into the countryside We were sitting by this little ditch, and it was like the farthest most point that the tide would come in. Then all of a sudden, all this water just comes running up the ditch.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it moves very
friend
quickly.
that said rivers don't run down, or rivers don't run uphill, or upstream, and it's like, oh, yeah, actually they do.
Yeah.
In a lot of places, there's tidal rivers that flow both ways. So yeah, in fact, Napa, is tidal river.
Well, so's the Hudson.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's tons of them.
I think when I was up there, they said the tides can raise the level of the water 50 to 60 feet.
Yeah.
You're right.
Sure.
55 feet.
Yeah, it all depends on how close you are to the equator. So near the equator, you hardly see any change. And as you go north, yeah, it's like my mom and dad's house in Seattle, it went out like 300 yards out into the sound, the property that they owned, because the
Yeah.
tide, went out that far.
At low tide, you can actually drive to offshore islands. When
Yes.
it's low tide, it's a gravel road.
Yes.
There's some places like Mont Saint Michel in France.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
go over to it on a causeway, but you better
Right.
get back at a certain time of day, or you're coming back by boat because the whole road is totally underwater.
Yeah, they have a bridge now, but yeah, it used to be, yeah.
That tide thing kind of reminds me. I don't know if I've ever told the story before. When we were kids, we used to parents, a couple of my parents knew. We'd all go over to New Brighton Beach, State Beach, and we'd put up our camping tents and go down to the beach every day. But there was nothing there like hot dog stands or anything. So one day, the Pecks, that was the couple that my parents knew, and they had 4 kids, and my sister and I decided we're going to walk along the water, the edge of the water to our coast to Capitola. And it was like a 20-minute walk. So we get our hot dogs, get our milkshakes, all the crap we weren't supposed to be eating, and go to walk back. Well, guess what? The tide had come in. We couldn't get back.
Oh,
So the oldest of the Peck kids, we thought, let's go to the sheriff's, or yeah, I think it was the sheriff's station. And so they drove us back to New Brighton. And of course, we were murdered by our parents.
Those
watching that last
albatross.
watching
What's
that
that?
last, the other, I think they were seagulls, but going out, I tell you,
Oh.
I want to wear a hat when I go out after that. Jeez.
Yep. Mhm.
If you ever see the show Doc Martin, he has a harbor in there, and Carol and I stayed in the village. It's a little place in called Port Isaac in Cornwall, and during the time the tides are out, the boats are all lying on their side with no water underneath them. They're all got a cable running to an anchor, and then come back 8 hours later, and the whole harbor's filled in, and the boats are all bobbing along. It's amazing to see how far out the tide actually goes.
Yeah.
Have a neat old boat down there.
That's nice. Bill, I see you've been following the SS United States.
Yes,
Yeah,
very sad. Yeah, very
really
sad
is.
indeed.
Yeah, really is.
What's the story?
They have sold it. It's been sold to a county in Florida. It's just been towed down to, I should just about be there, to Mobile, Alabama today. They're going to then take out the engines and all the portholes and everything, make it safe for divers, and take it out and dump it in
Scuttle
the
it.
ocean and make it the world's largest man-made reef.
Yep.
Okay, which
But
part is
not
that?
only that, they have to remove all the paint on the ship and all the wiring. It's going to cost them millions to do that.
I think I saw pictures of a Quebec City just a few moments
Yes,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Is that a DeSoto? Chrysler.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's
Looks
see.
like one.
Couldn't tell.
Look pretty nice. Nice color.
Yeah.
You notice the visor over the windshield My uncle had a DeSoto with that kind of visor.
Oh, that's,
Yeah, my grandfather did too. He loved DeSotos till they stopped making them.
She sure is dressed up.
yeah.
Bill, excuse me, Margot was at a toy show and she found an old Disney movie there that she wanted to know if you'd be
Could
interested.
you photograph it and send it to me? My daughter's at a toy show and want to see if I need to buy something. Oh, she texted to me. Okay, hang on. Let's see if I'm putting Tom Robbins' money to good use. 1 second.
Looks like this might be a wedding.
Yeah, it looks that way.
They're really celebrating real hard.
No, that would be if the guy would take like $10 for it, that would be fine.
Okay, Dad said if the guy would take $10 for it, that would.
My daughter picked up some of my collecting jeans, apparently.
Good for her.
She just likes to spend your money.
You know, of all my friends, I'm the only one that, well, one exception, that collects things. Everybody else thinks I'm like the biggest nerd in the world because I collect, you know, coins, typewriters, whatever. It's like, how can you not collect things?
I know.
Right.
The trouble is, you should see how many stamps I have. You know, I mean, just too much of everything, and I haven't touched them in years.
Yeah.
So let's see what else we have here. 1 second.
Randy, we just buried my mother-in-law. We're cleaning out her house now. She collected teapots and teacups. There's
Yeah,
at least 100.
Yeah, I have a neighbor actually that does that. And she has quite a collection. It's some really beautiful things.
They are, but I don't know what to do with them. I think we're going to put them up for sale, but
Yeah.
everybody, family members took what they wanted, but they are really nice.
Yeah, that's the problem. What do you do with these collections?
Yeah. So now we're
Yeah.
at Disney
My
World.
wife inherited a stamp collection. She spent about a month or two cataloging. And we took it to a dealer and it was about 4 boxes. And he ended up giving her like $1,000 for all the stamps. But
Yeah,
it's amazing what this gentleman, it was her uncle. He had collected international UN stamps and American. So you can just visualize 3 giant boxes of nothing but stamp albums, and there were even envelopes he hadn't opened yet from orders he had placed.
I collected them very strenuously for about 45 years and finally gave up.
Wow, that long, Bill. I did it for maybe like 5 or 6 years when I was a kid.
I've mentioned before my uncle Steve, who got me into photography. He was also into stamp collecting, and he had a massive collection of stamps, absolutely phenomenal to me. And I had been at his house one day, and I said something about the stamp having some pretty colors on it, and he gave it to me, and boy, I was hooked. And yeah, it was 1960. I can remember it because I started buying every stamp I could get from 1960 on, you know, just one of this, one of that, one of that.
US stamps.
US stamps. And then I got Uncle Steve then for my birthday or for Christmas would give me stamps from the United Nations. And it came up with this panel of stamps based on Marc Chagall glass window that was just, to me, one of the greatest things I had ever seen. So now down the United Nations rat hole I went. So I signed up to a company that would sell you first day covers, and I have like 2 first day covers of every stamp from 1960 to about 2010. I mean, way too many of them. But my dad worked for an international company, and he would bring home. They were always used, the ones who would bring home, but he'd get letters from all around the world and bring home the stamps. And sometimes I couldn't figure out, you know, what country it was, and it was great fun to get the Scott Guide and sit down with my uncle. And I think that was one of the first merit badges I got.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I started with the stamp collecting merit badge.
Okay,
Yeah,
Bill,
yeah.
I'm going to see if I can get this in front of the camera. Give me a minute. I got to turn off the background. I have something to show you regarding stamps.
Great. We'll get that when we're done with this. So again, I'm not quite sure what year this is at Disney World. I scanned it a couple weeks ago, and I didn't write down what the year was, but this is again no color correction, no digital dirt removal or anything along that line.
I recently bought an antique postcard for St. Patrick's Day, and the guy who sells the cards also sells stamps. So the envelope arrives with 6 different U.S. stamps on it from years back. And my first thought is, oh, that's interesting. And my second thought is, no, you don't need another collection.
I bought
Another rabbit hole.
I bought something like that, Wayne, from somebody, and it came priority mail, and he had all the stamps on the front of it and all the stamps on the back. I mean, there must have been 40, 50 stamps on there. And down in the bottom notation was somebody had actually counted like 37 3-cent stamps times, times 3 equals this, 17 4-cent stamps, and they totaled it up to make sure that it came out to the priority mail rate.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a few, especially when you buy from collectors, I'm buying stuff for my stamp collection. They'll send it with old stamps that, they've got so many of them that they just use them for postage.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've had some that have come in and it's just like the whole front of the envelope, and it's a 10 by 12 envelope or something is full of stamps.
Yeah.
Imagine the post.
Do you cut them off? Do you soak them off? Do you,
Well, some of them I have at times when they've been a very interesting stamp, but most of them they're pretty normal, and they're not usually very good quality, as far as centering and stuff like that. So it's not worth, they're probably worth just pennies at best. So, and they're a dime a dozen actually, more like. But I've had a few that were interesting from older times.
Yeah, I've when I've had stuff like that, I've tended to put them in an envelope and give them to kids for their collection.
Yeah.
This
must be fairly early. This must be fairly early, Bill. I'm not seeing Space Mountain.
Yeah, Space Mountain was an earlier shot.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
went by. But I stopped it here because this is the sort of thing you can't do today. No more swimming in the Seven Seas Lagoon.
Yeah.
Because of all the amoebas and alligators and everything else. And that was, to me, one of the sad things with the changes at Disney World today. Back then when they advertised it, when you were living upstate New York or in Massachusetts, and you saw the ads come on TV in middle of winter and everybody's out in the lakes and everything. I loved the lakes at Disney, the little aqualarks or water sprite boats, and I would go water skiing there. I mentioned before I had all expense paid expense account, as long anything I did, as long as I filled in a quality control report. So I'd rent a sailboat and find out just how bad I am at sailboats. So I would go water skiing, anything like that. But yeah, you can't do this today. All the beaches have signs along them, stay out of the water. Real shame.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons they built all the water parks on property, because people still wanted to be able to swim, and that's the only way they can safely do it.
Well, these are the boats. When they first came out, they used they bought them from another company. They were called Aqualarks, and then Disney decided, hey, we can make them ourselves, and they tried to call them Aqualarks, and they got sued by the Aqualark company, so they started calling them water sprites. And they were really, really neat. I mean, I have no boating skills whatsoever, but to get out on the lake, and they would go off at a pretty good clip, and you found out that if you got up way in the front of the boat, you could get the nose down more, and it would pick up more speed than if you were sitting in the back and it would go up. It would start, the motor would go down too deep or whatever. But we haven't been to Disney World in about 6 years. I don't know if they rent any of these or not anymore. But they were great when your kids are growing up. Your kids 6 years, 7 years old. You take them out, put them behind the wheel. Matter of fact, they would always tell you, if the kid can't drive, you have to. As soon as you get out of the site, you let the kid drive. But the great kids take your 7-year-old son out in the lake and go for a boat ride. Sorry, somebody at the front door.
There was a kid wearing a sweatshirt, t-shirt thing looked like 82, so maybe in the early 80s or late 70s.
No, no, I'm gonna have to, I don't know if this was 8mm or Super 8. I'll have to look it up.
Bill, going back about 10 minutes in time, if you loved the stamps with Chagall windows on it, you can see the real thing in Westchester County when you come back up.
Oh, have to do that.
In Pecanico Hills, which is part of the complex of the Rockefellers, they commissioned Chagall to do windows for the side and Matisse to do windows for the front and back. And it's a marvel to see.
Yeah, I like I said, I was really impressed. I think one of the things that impressed me about that set of stamps too is that there were multiple stamps in a pane, and you could, pop out one or two or four. I think there were four of them or something in the set. But I have quite a few. For a while, I had an entire collection of the United Nations stamps, but I think I gave up and again about 2010 or so on those. But my Uncle Steve, yeah, we spent, he was a great guy. We spent a lot of time together, and he was always, he'd see some hole in my collection, and I'd say something about saving up the money, and the next week he'd say, "Oh, I just happened to find an extra one." And then I later found out he was actually going up and buying them for me. That he didn't have an extra one. He was a very, very generous man.
Bill, refresh my memory, or any stamp collectors. What were blocks and plates?
What was
Plate block.
Plate
Yeah,
blocks.
plate blocks were a block of 4 stamps that had the number
Right.
printed from the identified what plate they were printed from.
Okay.
And in later years with the color stamps, that you would have multiple color marks. They don't mean the same thing they used to on newer stamps. They always have a number, but they're always the same number because it's not from a plate in the same sense. And it's just a registration of the different colors used.
Yeah, that way, if they started finding stamps were getting blurry or damaged or whatever, they could go and find that plate, pull it out, and not use it again.
Yeah.
The thing I like about the stamps, 1960s and earlier, I'm not sure what that process is. It intaglio?
Yeah,
that was one of them. Yeah,
kind of raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the New York World's Fair '64 stamp.
Right.
There was a call. Oh,
that what I'm say it again.
Oh, I was just gonna say I have a really cool story about some stamps. Carrie and I used to, buy and sell houses.
Oh, real quick, we're inside the Contemporary Resort, I believe. Oh no, sorry, the Polynesian, inside one of the rooms here. So
those ladies didn't even breathe, it looks like.
Yeah.
Mm.
So sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, and we owned this house. It was built by a Army colonel at Fort Douglas, and he built the house in about 1870. And it had this just big, grand, kind of like ballroom, living room area, with the, beam ceilings and a fireplace at the end of the room. And then on both sides of the fireplace were these bookcases, and the shelving on the bookcases had a empty space behind it, right? It's like a inch or so, just where it would go down under that bookshelf, and ever since we had bought it, I always wondered if anything interesting had ever fallen back there. So the last day I was, I had the house cleaned out for the new owner, and I just thought, now my last chance to ever check. So I pulled off the baseboard and just grabbed everything, put it in a bag. There's all kinds of stuff had fallen back there. And one of the things was a stamp collection that ended in 1903.
Wow.
And so it started, in the 1800s, and then the last of the stamps were 1903. So I've never tried to find out what it's worth, but it's a green linen book, and it's just practically filled with stamps.
That's really neat.
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Do you think they fell back there, or do you think it was hidden back there?
No, I think it fell back. I think, probably their kid had it, and it, Yeah, because they're all like I says, there are tokens and all kinds of postcards and
The one
things
thing
that
I found like that, where I live now, my current home, had some water damage a few years ago, so they had to take some siding off the outside. And we found I'd say circa 19, well, the house was built in 86, so I'd say probably, 86 styrofoam Big Mac container.
ancient styrofoam.
Yeah, so I guess the construction workers must have brought their lunch back, and
There are probably people that collect those things.
I'm sure, yeah.
Seems like there's people who collect everything, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and something like that's a cross collectible, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we could collect that. I'm sure like the Expo 86 McDonald's probably has special containers for their Big Macs that indicated, Expo 86 on them.
Well, it's interesting with the things like McDonald's. There's some people that go and I've seen it online. The guy trying to collect every tray liner from every McDonald's, and you think about that sort of task because different McDonald's in LA would have a different tray liner than one in, say, Poughkeepsie or something. And you try to think, how do you know if you have the definitive? It's like people trying to collect Disney pins today. I mean, there's always more coming out. If you like, the nice thing about collecting World's Fair stuff, they don't make it anymore. I mean, so, but with things like the Disney pins, these people, you see them walking around with these vests on, it must weigh 10 pounds. And there's always another pin coming out, another pin coming out. And there was a guy I knew that, God, it's funny, the things you remember. His name was Ian Miska, and he was a Chicago policeman, and he was into Disney watches. And one of the things, whether Bradford Mint or some of them had a month of the Watch of the Month club, and every month he would get another Disney watch. And I say, how long you been doing this? And he goes, well, 8 years so far. I'm almost up to 100. And you go, what the hell do you do with 100 Disney watches? It goes, well, they're all in boxes. I don't use them, And it's like, okay, I'm not the only Looney Tune out there, But he finally, his wife, Leah, finally told him enough, and then I think he started collecting, I don't know, Disney, I don't know, whatever it was. But I mean, a watch every single month, and they were like $50 a month or so he was spending on these watches, so they were not Rolexes or anything, but it was, some like LED,
Timex.
Timex, El Cheapo sort of thing. And
Ingram, yeah.
yeah. But it is interesting when you think about how much space. Like Carol and I keep talking about downsizing, and I go, oh man, I got to get rid of so much stuff because I don't want to have to move it, let alone find a place big enough to keep it. I just
You have to find a storage unit that is climate controlled or whatever.
We had a storage unit for quite a while, and it became so expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, it was costing me like $400 a month for the storage unit. And I finally said no. So everything is in the garage and the cars are sitting in the driveway now. But the thing is, I really just got to get rid of it. But instead,
storage units became so expensive. When my mother died, my sister and I got a storage unit for her stuff. We, wanted to go through it, but you couldn't do it, right away. So, started out at like $100 a month or something. And by the time we actually went through the stuff, and we did it because it had got to be so expensive. It was like $400 a month for the same unit. It just got to be pretty costly.
They hook you, and what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Just reading through here in the chat, you mentioned McKay's bookstore. We went there. That was just ginormous. Wow. We pulled into the place, and I don't think I've ever seen that many books in a library.
And they have like 5 locations. And back in the summer, they celebrated their 50th anniversary, and they had this road trip where you could, if you went to all 5 locations, which were spread across Tennessee and North Carolina, if you went through all 5 locations and got your little passport book stamped, they would give you like $800 in store credit, which goes pretty far at McKay's.
Yeah.
but it created this like huge bottleneck at all the stores. Like it was on the national news. We were in Charlottesville at the time because Andrew was at Rare Book School at University of Virginia, and we were just watching it on our phones, seeing all the news stories about all the like traffic delays and like people passing out from the heat because they were waiting out in line to go into McKay's. But it's a great store.
Yeah, they had one of them in Nashville when Neil was going there. And when we first pulled up, there was an arch outside with their name on it. And my first thought was a World's Fair arch. And then I said, oh, no, it's wrong size or whatever. But then they announced they were moving to a new location and, having a huge sale, sell it so we don't have to move it. And of course, you're back on vacation. What do? You fill up a suitcase full of books. But yeah, they also had DVDs and records and other things that were really, really cheap.
Yeah, they have like musical instruments. They have all the little Funko Pop toys. They have puzzles. They have all kinds of things.
Yeah,
they're still open.
Yeah, there are 5 of them. So we go to the one in Chattanooga that's closest to us. Then there's one in Knoxville and Nashville, and then a couple in North Carolina.
Yeah, we went to the Chattanooga one when we were there, and it was like I said, I pulled in there. It was like, wow.
Bill, what's the bookstore in Pasadena? Is that Vroman's?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Romans.
Nowhere near. I mean, Romans here, the other one. I mean, it's unbelievable how big.
Really, wow. And then there's that one up in Portland. Is that Powell's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There used to be another big one in Seattle, and I don't remember what the name of that one was, but I think that's gone now.
Denver had one called the Tattered Cover. I think
that was a nice place.
Yeah.
It's not still there?
I don't know. I haven't been there in years.
I think it is, but it's gone through different ownership. They had several locations. Yeah.
I've been there.
Scott, did you have something you wanted to show?
Yeah, let me see if I can. Give me 1 minute.
Don, you've got 2 or 3 bookstores right in Montpelier, at least last I checked.
Really?
Yeah. Now, they may not be there because Montpelier has gone through a lot of changes in the 30 years that I've been up and through.
Yeah, I've been to Montpelier, but I haven't gone looking for bookstores. But yeah, they flooded quite a bit. So if it's down anywhere down by the river, it may be gone.
Yeah, focusing on it, Scott. It looks like a first day cover, but blurry.
Yeah, these are first day covers. One is from Charles Schultz from Peanuts for Cub Scouts. The other one is a first day cover from, I believe it's France for scouting. And then there's the 2 stamps that the U.S. issued, a 4-cent stamp for Boy Scouts, and then Gesundheit, and an earlier 3-cent stamp. I'm not sure of the years. I'll see if I can get a clear shot and send it to you. But the older stamp is a plate block, according to my wife, who was a collector. And I put this together for my son when he was scouting.
Oh, that's neat.
And that was decades ago. And when he moved out, he left it with Dad, of course. But some of it's the Schultz stamp is quite entertaining for scouts. I will send you clear pictures so you can take a look at it for the Boy Scout.
Yeah, I when I started collecting first day covers, my uncle would give me his copy of Lynn's Stamp News, and they had a list of all the first day covers coming out. And
I remember that.
Yeah, I would go and address an envelope to myself, put it in another envelope, mail it off to the first day cover place, whatever town it was, and you had to send them 4 cents or whatever for the stamp to come back, and it was just a thrill to get it back. Then I just found the, what was it called, something Undercraft or whatever, the people that made the pre-made ones. That was a lot easier, because I was always, you start worrying about, oh, I'm going to miss one, I'll forget it or whatever. But I have a whole ton of them with very childish, Bill Cotter 530 Ashland Avenue scrolled on it, and it was great fun. And what I enjoyed about stamp collecting was there were, I can remember, it's funny the things you remember different ones. Getting a stamp of Mahatma Gandhi and saying, okay, who was this guy? And at that time, there was no internet, so I'd go down to the library and get out the World Book Encyclopedia, and I'd look up, what was Fort Dearborn? Who was, John Muir? I mean, I learned an awful lot from the stamp collection because I went to the library and tried to figure out who all these people were and why they got a stamp. And, I think that helped me with my my love of history. So I hope, well, I'm sure people saw some stuff you didn't see today because most of you probably haven't been to the Thousand Islands. Anybody besides Carol who's gone to the Thousand Islands? Nobody else? It's really a pretty area.
Is fall a good time to go? Do they have the
Fall is
changing
just,
colors?
yeah, fall. If you can go to the Thousand Islands, you want to go in summer or fall. Summer, it can get to be very touristy, and like I said, you get to towns like Alexandria Bay, and if they're having a big jazz festival, they also had like their version of a Dapper Dan thing where people dress in period costumes and that. But fall, that area is just beautiful. We're going back to New York in September, so the trees probably won't be changing down on Long Island. Hopefully, if we get upstate, it will look here. But it is really spectacular up there, and like I said, it's empty for the majority of the year. I mean, the roads are empty, and it's a really scenic place. Some of the places like Bolt Castle, Singer Castle, and that closed down for the winter because you just can't get out there unless you walk over, on the frozen river. But it's really a spectacularly beautiful part of the country.
Our friends, Dave and Carmel, our mutual friends.
Yeah.
They spent most of the summer up there on their boat.
Yeah. It's like, we keep saying we'd like to win the lottery and buy a place up there, but you wouldn't want to be up there in winter. It's one of those things, those towns like Alexandria Bay, because I went to school not terribly far from there, and you go over to one of those towns in the summer, and oh my God, there's a parking spot. Get it. You go in the winter. Hey, there's a parking spot and a parking spot and a parking spot and all the restaurants are closed and half the hotels are closed. Everybody just goes someplace else for the winter. But,
yeah, it's like Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, it's like I'd been to Salzburg in the early 70s, and they didn't have the Sound of Music tours then, or not that I saw, but we kind of figured our own tour out, figured out which building was which and all that. So I take a friend the following year, another airline employee friend, and in October, well, little did I know that everything closed down at the 1st of October. Like during the summer, you could take, familiar you are with the movie, but in the opening sequence, those aerial shots, these two boats are passing each other. You could take that boat to St. Gilgan and then get the rack railway up to the top of the mountain that is at the very opening. They fly over this snow-covered mountain and this sheer cliff. And you go up there. Well, all that was closed. I mean, there was nothing to see really, other than a couple things right in town.
Yeah, we had it. You get so used to where you live, like here in LA, everything's open year round, right? We went back to New York to visit my folks one time with my daughter, and we were back there, like, say, the middle of September, and everything was closed. It was everything closed at Labor Day. They would open up Memorial Day and close on Labor Day, like it was a law or something. So you'd want to take her to some little kiddie amusement park or something. Oh, no, we closed last week, and how about this? Oh, that's closed. It's just amazing how, seasonal things become. Because
Hey,
everything's
Irv,
open.
Irv, do you collect anything?
No.
Dust.
Why do you ask?
I knew that answer.
I was just thinking of Bill's collection, all those photos. What's going to become of all that stuff?
I've been talking. I had started before the pandemic to talk to a university up in Fresno, and I've got to reopen negotiations or discussions with them to see what to do. I had actually been in discussions with the Library of Congress, and they said, "Oh, you need to provide us a letter for every photo saying that the original photographer has the rights." And you go,
Every photo?
yeah, every photo, 100,000, good luck, so,
Start working now.
yeah. But,
How much space does your collection take up, Bill? More than one room?
oh, no. 5, no, it's, one of the things we talked, I think last week, saying about trying to get them all out of carousels because that takes so much space, and I've got them all in plastic sheets, but
Oh,
it takes up quite, I have shelves in the closet. When we moved into this house, behind me, there's wall-to-wall covered cabinets, and those are all full. That's the left one's all photos, and the right one's all stamps. And then upstairs, album after album after album after album. All the shelves are done. Okay, let me go put them in the guest room. So
so
lots
it's not all digital, it's hard copies.
yeah. Now, the tough one right now is these films are taking up a lot of space. Like this is the size of the can that this. Let's see, which one was this? This was Thousand Islands. So that you can see the size of the can, and they're pretty thick too. For being 16 millimeter, and they weigh a lot. So those are
They get brittle and don't they get brittle and deteriorate with age too?
Surprisingly, these films here are in pretty good shape. They don't seem the bigger thing you have to worry about is something called vinegar syndrome, which is when the plastic or whatever the base of it starts going. It really smells like vinegar, and they can bubble. It happens more with color films than with black and white. But you can open up a can of a color film from the 30s that will just knock you right out of your socks. I mean. And sometimes they're just so bad, all you can do is throw them away.
Aren't they saying all the old movies in Hollywood they were turning into nitroglycerin? So there was in a rush to try to preserve them before they deteriorated.
Yeah,
Nitrates.
it wasn't really
Nitrate, yeah.
nitroglycerin, it's called nitrate film, and it was a very, very flammable thing. Dave Smith, the Disney archivist, used to show people, he would take a can, like a can like this, and just put a piece of nitrate film on it and put a match. And a little strip of film this big, drop a match, the flame would come up, this high. I mean, it's very flammable. So you have special projectors to run nitrate film. And years ago, because again, there's like at the Disney studios, a certain signs on projection booth, no nitrate film in this booth. They've gotten almost everything onto safety copies now, but the nitrate stuff all stored in a salt mine, former salt mine. But I may have mentioned this on a prior talk. We had an employee film club, and I formed it. And one of the things was to be able to screen all the sort of things that we didn't normally get to screen. So we were having a day down at Disneyland, and we were going to show films at the Lincoln Theater. And they called up, and we can't find whatever film they had promised me. And I go, great, what do I do? I've got like 300 people coming to this thing tonight, and you don't have the film. So Ron Miller, the head of the company at the time, told the film vault to give Cotter anything he wants. So I gave him a shopping list of some really rare stuff. And one of them was a Disney cartoon called The Mad Doctor, which is a great, great Mickey cartoon, but it had been withdrawn from circulation at the time because it was found to be too scary. That this Mad Doctor wants to cut off Pluto's head and glue it to a chicken. So they say, all right, we'll ship it down to Disneyland, and we'll be down there when you get down there tonight. So I get down to Disneyland, and I had to go to the main warehouse, and I pick up the can, and it's a big, heavy can. I mean, it's really big, and I realize, they sent me a 35 millimeter print. This is great. So I put in the back of my Porsche I had at the time, along with some other films, went out to dinner, came back to the theater, took it out, and the guy said, well, you can't run this in here. That's nitrate. I've got this explosive can of film. I mean, it's big. It's like this big, that thick. And it's a hot day, and it's in the back of my hatchback Porsche. And I think, oh, God. Well, I called a friend of mine, Mark Calcular, who's a huge, huge film collector, and he has a nitrate-equipped film. And I said, hey, Mark, I'm down at Disneyland, and I've got a copy of The Mad Doctor, 35 millimeter nitrate. Can you screen it? And he said, how fast can you be here? And I said, I'll be there about 3 hours from now when I'm done with the show and everything. I got up to his house, and it's like 85 other Disney and film collectors because he told everybody that I was bringing it. And he had a tiny, tiny little place and with all full of film and posters and everything. And we're all in there. And we must have watched The Mad Doctor 6 times because there was no way back then to get a recording of it. But people they had heard about this film but not seen it. And let's run it again. Guys, it's 2 a.m. I got to bring it back to work, sort of thing. And then one guy was like, "Can't you say you lost it? I'll give you $1,000."
Bill,
Yeah.
have you ever taken the or anybody here, the Warner Brothers studio tour?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did it.
Long time.
Yeah, I did it during the or just as the pandemic was winding down. Girlfriend of mine who lives up in Studio City, we just had nothing to do, so let's go do that. So, and at the time they had kind of combined all their tours into one because of the pandemic. They were kind of streamlining their operation. But normally you can choose a tour, classics, whatever. During the tour, they asked, everybody, what are your favorite types of films? And most of the people were younger, and they said, Spider-Man, the more current stuff. And I said, black and white classics. So by the time we got back to the visitor center, our hostess had radioed back, and there was another hostess that met us, said, "Hey, you guys are interested in classic films? Hop on the golf cart." And she took us on another tour. Very extensive. But anyway, they do have some on-site film preservation vaults. And then she also mentioned the salt mine preservation vaults. It was interesting. I highly suggest the tour if you ever get a chance, if anybody's in that area. It's about $60. That's well worth it.
When I worked at Warner Brothers, the film vaults were all over the place, and they didn't even bother closing them up. You could walking back from lunch, you'd see the door open, you just walk in, and there was just row after row after row of stuff. And I mentioned that to my friend Mark one day, and he was like, "Is there a Looney Tune vault?" And I said, "Oh, I assume so." So I went and asked anybody, and I took a picture and showed it to him. I thought the poor guy was kind of a heart attack. He's like, "God, these things haven't been shown in 30 years. Can you go get me one?" I said, "No, I want to keep my job." It was all open, and that was a part of the problem. People did go in and just help themselves to stuff. And when they were doing the remake of I think it was for Laserdisc, the Judy Garland version of A Star Is Born, there was all sorts of stuff that was missing, and they put out a big appeal, and some collectors had it, and they said, "Well, I'll let you copy of it, but you got to give it back." And then Warner's, "Well, you shouldn't have it. It was stolen." Then I don't have it anymore. No, you can't. So they finally worked out deals and stuff. But yeah, people used to just go into the vaults and just help themselves to stuff.
There's a great book about the restoration of that film. And it mentions, the stuff you mentioned. I don't think I've ever seen the restored version. There, maybe about 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes they couldn't find the film. I don't know if you guys know the story. It was like probably about a 3-hour film. It got sliced and diced so they could get more showings in during a day, and got to the point where it didn't even make sense. And what they did was they found people who had tape recorded in a theater. They brought their own tape recorder and recorded it from beginning to end. So they were able, by listening to the tape recording, to figure out what scenes were missing. And then, like Bill was saying, there were people that had copies that they had basically stolen or whatever. They were able to get all but about 10 minutes. So during those 10 minutes, you hear the spoken dialogue and music and all that, but you see a black and white photo of the scene.
Yeah, they've done that with some, like with Doctor Who. The British broadcasting company threw out years and years of it, and there were guys that had just recorded it because like you said, audio. And there was a company called Telesnaps, where this guy had a company that he took pictures of the screen like every 10 seconds or so to prove to advertisers whether their stuff had run, and also to sell pictures to actors that they could stick in their portfolio to say, "I was a guest star on Doctor Who," and you could get a picture, of you there doing it. Well, somebody found this archive, and they were able to reconstruct some of the missing Doctor Who episodes, but the telesnaps with some guy's amateur, audio recording that they put together. And now they've taken, in some of them, they've actually animated them to reuse the soundtrack and put things back together. But
Hmm.
it's astonishing what rare stuff shows up. That some who would have thought some kid recorded Doctor Who on a reel-to-reel recorder in 1963 or whatever, and now it shows up.
Yeah, they're
Hey,
re-releasing
Bill.
Sound of Music this year for the 60th anniversary. And they tried, but had no luck. They thought maybe they would be able to locate. There are about 4 scenes that were cut out. They had previews in Tulsa and Minneapolis, and they thought they just didn't need those scenes. The film was already just under 3 hours. And they have still, photographs from them, but they thought they might be able to locate them and include them in, the re-release DVD or DVD or whatever. But they had no luck finding anything.
Yeah, Eric, were you saying something?
Yeah, sorry, not to break from the current conversation, but I had a question before we all take off or whatever. But it's a question for you and Brock maybe. But as you know, I told you, I went to Imagineering last weekend for an event. But and one of the cool things, we got to see the Grand Central Terminal. I hadn't seen that, redone. But one quirky thing that was in the Big D Cafe was a mannequin of a security guard named Harold. Do you guys know the background of that?
Yeah, he was one of the guards that used to be there, and I don't remember why the mannequin was made, but he was always, I think, in there. I've always been surprised that there wasn't a mannequin of Dennis Meekum, which is where the big D came from. Why he isn't in there, because why that was named that when they redid it. But I remember I was there when he worked there, and I don't remember how, because I think that was added after I left Imagineering, that they added him in there. But I do remember, when I saw it, I was back there for that Bob Weiss book signing that they had a few months ago.
The drink,
And I saw it there, and it was like, oh, I forgot all about that guy. But yeah, he was one of the guards that was always there, and I think he spent half his day in the in the cafeteria. I mean, that's what people would say by reputation. But I don't know where it exactly came from and how it got in there. But it was of a real person.
I think it was supposed to have been
How
a
funny.
concept for an AA figure or something, and they decided that they would not go the whole route with it. Like there are a number of people, like Brock knows this woman Debbie Del Mar that puts together a lot of the reunions and that. If you went to, and it was always fun to go to Epcot and see things like they had the Studio Computer Review, and they had the one of the computer operators, and somebody in the field is asking, can we bring so and such tape online? There's Debbie. Yes, we can. Well, they also made her an AA figure in the sea base and the Horizons Pavilion. So she's there with a trained seal, and she's trying to. And when they tore down the building, she asked if she could get her AA figure, and they said, "Yeah, here's what it will cost." No.
No.
But it was always weird to go through Horizons, look down and see somebody that you worked with training a seal. So they did use people for models for stuff.
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you. Yeah, I took a picture. I was going to share it, but I don't think I can share. It's not allowing me to share it. So, just to share Harold there.
I can make you a co-host if you want to share it. 1 second here.
Okay.
Talking about restoring films. Hang on, make co-host. Guy Scott McQueen was the Disney film archivist for years, and he said one of his great fears was every time you restore a film and you announce, you put it out, you send the master out. The next day, somebody say, "Hey, I found some more footage."
Let's see. Okay, I'm not familiar with Zoom as much because
down the bottom, share screen, and then you pick whatever window.
Right, and then I'm trying to share this particular application, but I'll do the screen. Hold on. Hold on.
I have 10 Mickey Mouse cartoons from Scott that supposedly nobody, has. They were in the vault, and just they're, I guess, really, really bad. I've never watched them. I know that there's 10 of them, but you know, he said they were horrible, and I just kind of went, oh well, and I don't think I'll watch them, but I have them.
Okay. Oh, okay. Fright Logbook. Yep. There you go.
Oh, sorry. Can you see it? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Can't quite tell what
See.
I'm sharing now. Okay, so
Just real
here's
quick for
Harold.
folks- real quick for folks that don't know it, Grand Central Terminal. It's funny. It was just in the news the other night on Channel 5. It was a airport in Glendale, California, and it was a commercial airport. And if you see big Laurel and Hardy movie where they do, I think it was Foreign Legion, they're doing a thing out there. But Disney leased this for years, later bought it and has restored it. But it used to be a manufacturing shop back when I was with Disney. So
Yeah, it
sorry,
became
go ahead.
offices when they restored it, and they spent a lot of time meticulously finding out about the finishes and how it really looked back when it was an air terminal when they restored it. I'm sure Eric got the whole story if he did the tour of it, because
Not really. It was more of explore your own kind of situation. I did like my own personal research on it. And actually I probably wasn't allowed to take this picture, but but this leads into the offices now for Disney. I think D23. Here's me and
Oh, there
Harold.
he is. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
So where is
but
Grand
yeah,
Central? Where was it located?
it was right across. There's a street that went through. What was that street called, Bill?
Flower?
Not Flower. We were on Flower. It's the one next between it and Glen Oaks, or not Glen Oaks. It was another one above that. Grand Central.
Yeah.
Grand Central ran through, and so if you look at this picture, actually, this is taken from the tower, I think,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's
because
a mock-up of the tower they have. Yep.
yeah. So the Grand Central now, I think, is just there are still cars. You still drive down that, but Imagineering is behind that building. You see the two-story building with the tilt-up construction. That was the Mapo part of it, and then Imagineering was on the other side, and then the airport. We're looking down that lawn area there. That green area is part of what used to be the tarmac for the airport. So
guess
the airport
Flower was
used
fun.
by a lot of stars because it came in close to, it was the closest airport, I think, to the studios at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, LAX didn't exist from what I understood. This was the
Yeah,
airport
yeah.
for the area.
Yeah, LA
Yeah.
didn't exist as an airport, or if it did, it was very small. I mean, it was just getting started. This is way back. But yes, it was, and a lot of people thought that the tower was the tower used in Casablanca for the
Right.
airport scene there. It wasn't, it turned out. It was very similar in appearance, but it was not, from what we were told. I always thought when they
Yeah.
took the Lockheed Electra out of the studio tour with the Great Moments, the movies ride, they should have brought it back there and put it in that airport, put it out in front of the building because it was the same time frame. And it would have been kind of a
Right.
neat thing, but it just got junked someplace.
Yeah, I think they only had saved pieces of the plane for the
Well,
great-
the tail was missing because they had cut it. We had to cut it off to fit it in the building.
right.
And but they used the tail, at least for a while. It was in the Jungle Cruise ride. Actually,
okay.
in the very
Oh.
beginning, it was part of the backstage tour. Then they found some other real stuff they could use there, so they put it into the Jungle Cruise. And I thought it was still there, and they could have put it back together, but it would have cost money, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the first airline I worked for was Western Airlines. They had archives in their headquarters on Century Boulevard there at LAX, but they had a lot of pictures of you were mentioning stars, descending the stairs of the airplanes of the time, the Ford Tri-Motor or whatever.
Right.
Back when it was called Western Express, and all those photos now are in the Delta archives in Atlanta. But I recently found a picture of a very, very young Katharine Hepburn and Ginger Rogers. They were young starlets descending the stairs of this airplane. And of course, the photographer always made sure to include the Western Express logo in the photo, but they're really fascinating.
Yeah, they did a nice job on this building. We were out there for the memorial service when Dave Smith died, and that was the first time Eisner had been back in years, and I hadn't seen him in years. But yeah, it was nice that they did it. It was just on the news the other night that Channel 5 does, or Channel 9 rather, does a thing where they you can write into their news division about I'd like to see stuff in the air, and then the helicopter pilot goes out, photographs it, and does a whole narration. And he talked about how Brand, it was a big shot in Glendale that Brand Boulevard is named after, would throw all these parties, and he would make it mandatory you could only come by airplane because he was trying to promote
Yeah.
the use of the
Yes.
airport. Yeah. So yeah,
Wow.
I have to remember exactly which Laurel and Hardy movie. There's a whole big sequence where they are out on that thing and you can see the terminal really well behind it. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Eric, there's
Yeah,
this
it
one
was pretty
interior
cool.
shot. There was an interior. Oh, you
Oh,
stopped
sorry.
sharing. Never mind. No, there was an interior shop
Yeah.
that you showed up a couple of times. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you could see the top of a wall, a kind of silver metallic detail. It was some of the architectural detail they were able to pick out of photographs and reproduce when they redid that interior. So it's not this scene. It's got people in
Oops,
it.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
Hold on.
You're going
Hold
too
on.
fast.
Is it this one?
Yes. Okay. Up right in the just off center to the right side there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just had your. Yeah, that's
Oop.
it.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they found a piece of it or they reproduced it from photographs. I'm trying to remember in the tour what they told us, but that was some of the detail. And there was some other stuff, especially up on the second floor. There was a lot of stuff they did where they were able to restore it. And they even went through the building because they could identify certain interior walls that had been there when it was part of the airport.
Wow.
And they were able to scrape down the paint to a level where they could come up with the color it had been when they did it. So
Wow.
the colors that they've used on the walls were circa the time it was in its prime. So
They're appropriate. That's great.
yeah, they spent a lot of time and effort to really create the space the way it had been.
Yeah, if you ever.
Yeah, I
if you're
took several other shots.
interested
They're not here, but
if you're interested in
sorry, go ahead.
this kind of stuff, several years ago at the San Francisco airport, it was building for air travel. This is the catalog to it. There's a lot of information about this Grand Central Air Terminal in it, but it's really a fascinating book about how jets influenced terminal design, how original terminal design was based on railroad terminals. It's got a lot of information in it.
Great.
Billy, you were talking about Doctor Who, the episode Shada, when they were filming that, they had a strike.
Right.
And it's totally shut down production. And when they finally did the animation scenes, the final scene, they had actually brought in Tom Baker about 10 years ago. No one knew. He did it for the 50th episode, but they brought him in and he made an appearance, and everyone on the BBC who was watching it went totally crazy because he's still very much loved in the public.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And even though he's in his 90s.
Yeah, for the folks who don't know that one, he's fighting this evil nemesis, as Doctor Who always did, and they went on strike. That was the nemesis he couldn't do. And when they came back, they said, it's too expensive. We can't put it all back together. And they just left it out. So then they did a special, I think it was called The Five Doctors, and they all came back. And Tom Baker refused to come back for whatever particular reason. So they had a scene of him and his companion Leah, and they're at punt on a boat, and this device comes down, captures them, and takes them off to the 12th dimension, and he's not seen for the rest of the thing. But then some fan decided he was going to reconstruct the episode and did all his own animation, which then the BBC decided they should do their own. And so there's like 3 different versions of that quote lost episode out there, and they're all fascinating to watch. when we went to Cambridge and we went there, it's like, oh my God, I know right where I am because I've watched that thing so many times. You know? Yeah.
I actually have one on videotape. I don't even know. Do you want it?
No, I have them all on DVD. Thanks.
But when he did the episode, the 50th episode, again, no one knew that he was going to be the creator, curator.
Curator, yeah.
Right. And it was great. And that was probably one of the last times they've seen him acting. He has done a couple of audio episodes,
Yeah.
interviews, but
That the episode he's talking about, they brought back one of the doctors is dead, but they brought back somebody that looks very much like him. But in the end, the current Doctor Who is in a museum and he's seeing the curator and says, "You look familiar." And then he says something like, "Yeah, you know, every now and then you see a face that reminds you of something, you know, one of the old favorites or something." And they never let on that he was Doctor Who, but they let on that he's Doctor Who. You know, it was a very cute cameo sort of thing that he did on it. But yeah, you get, you know, 2 hours of slashing and bashing, crashing, and all of a sudden that hits you at the end. It was very, very poignant.
do you watch the current?
Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Do you watch the current Doctor?
I haven't watched the most recent episode. When they did the episode where the new one was revealed, I frankly didn't like it. You know,
It's geared for the youngers.
Well, no, what struck me, again, going down a real Doctor Who rat hole, they had David Tennant, who was the 10th Doctor, who was absolutely wonderful. I mean, just fantastic. And they brought him back because they put this woman, Jodie Foster in, no, not Jodie Foster, Jodie White, whatever her name was.
Whitaker.
She did a really good job on very terrible scripts.
Oh, the
And
scripts were horrible for her, yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
ratings just went into the toilet. So they brought back David Tennant, and they did 3, I think, episodes with him, and then all of a sudden they split into 2 different Doctor Who's, and the new one comes out, and he knows stuff that what gets me, if it's supposed to be one Doctor, the new guy that he's cloned from should know the same stuff, right? So he knows that if you take a big mallet and you hit the TARDIS on the side hard enough, it will pop another TARDIS out the side. And it's like, why did the new guy know this, but the old guy didn't know it? You know, they just started monkeying with the whole history and that there could only be one Doctor Who and everything. And I said, I'll watch it, and I've never gotten around to it. It's on Disney Plus. I'll get to it. But
that's another thing. The fact that the BBC sold it to Disney, not to knock Disney. I'm a purist. I loved it when it was BBC.
Yeah.
When I was in London, I looked forward to actually seeing it on the BBC channel.
Well, you may appreciate this. I can't get it right now, but I came home one day and I walk into our family room where Carol and Neil are on the screen right now. I walk in, there's a full-size TARDIS standing there in my family room. And it's like, okay. Neil's company, somebody came in like, we want you to sell, and it's a giant cardboard cutout, but full size. It's really big. And, you know, we'd like you to sell these to the stores. Here's a sample. So they brought it in, and Neil said, oh, my dad would like that. So I've got this giant ass TARDIS. You know, I've got it collapsed right now.
If you don't want it,
no, I want it.
I'll make you a deal.
I'll make a space for it. But if you might appreciate this, Scott. We were, which town, Carol, was it in that we were went to the TARDIS restaurant? You're muted.
It was in Edinburgh.
I thought it was Edinburgh. We're
Yeah.
going along to eat, there was looking at the church and the cemetery, and we come along and there's a TARDIS, the police phone box standing there with a guy. He's got the door open and he's selling food, right? And we said, what do you have? And he had a thing there, Reuben sandwiches, and Carol loves Reuben sandwiches. So he said, oh, I'll make you a Reuben sandwich. And literally this thing is very, very small. I mean, it's incredible. And he ducks down and he said, and we had a talk with him about being Doctor Who fans. And he says, oh, he likes to tell people, I've got to go downstairs to the basement to go get something. He'll duck out of sight. But he had this entire little restaurant and something that I don't know, it was a quarter the size of the office that I'm in right now, and he made a really nice Reuben sandwich.
And it was a good sandwich too.
Yeah. It was just really strange standing in the side of a street with a guy ducking down and he brings up a hot plate and he's doing this and putting it all together and then he goes over and gets this and does everything. And I've got pictures of it. I'll have to come up with it. It was really one of those moments you say, you know, it makes travel worthwhile. It was really fun.
Okay.
Is that the
Have you
sandwich?
been,
Is that a sandwich with 3 inches of meat in it? The meat's 3 inches thick.
all right.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's blurry.
It's
again.
actually the Who shop in London by the
No, no.
Upton Park Station.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my camera's acting up. But when we were in London, I asked my wife, "Can we go there?" And she's not a big Who fan. She enjoys it. She goes, "All right." The weather wasn't great. We weren't going to do any real sightseeing, and we trekked in the rain. We got to the store, a lovely store, and they also have a museum that you can pay to go visit in the back. But it was wonderful. It was a little bit of a trek to get there with the underground, but it was
I'm gonna go grab something. I'll be right back.
okay.
Gonna go grab a Reuben sandwich.
The best one I ever
Well,
had
they
was
s-
on a
they
Coast Guard
smugg-
cutter.
They smuggled
so
one on
good.
board one of the spacecraft in the early space age. And then
Have
they
all of
didn't
you
find
seen
it
the
for a
movie
while.
Hugo?
No.
So we're
You should-
talking about early film, and that movie's about George Minil, is it? Who is kind of considered the grandfather of movies, and it's really, really, really good. Jude Law's in it, and
Okay.
the guy that plays
Uh,
George Minil.
Oh, hey,
My son got into folding paper and making things out of folded paper, animals and things like that. And so he
Origami.
made me a TARDIS. And this took him forever. I cannot think how many pieces of paper in it. I generally don't pick it up.
And he had to glue them together because
Yeah,
they
had to
didn't
glue them all
stay.
together. So, but yeah, the family knows that whenever you don't know what to give Dad for Christmas or his birthday,
Who
Phone
made
booth.
that, Bill? Who made that thing?
my son. Yeah,
Wow.
it's all made out of little pieces of paper. You can see the texture on it. They're all folded over like origami type things, put together and glued together. So
We used to make buildings out of sugar cubes.
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And the cat would jump up and start licking it.
Yeah, I did Big Ben is sugar cubes when I think that 4th grade or something. I won some prize for it. Big thing was that I had my Matchbox double-decker bus on the bridge, and I had wired it, you know, through the axle through the cardboard that I had made the bridge out of, you know, the roadway, and somebody stole the bus.
Oh,
Oh, so upset.
Well, maybe some week we can have Carol do a program on her cardboard art.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't have a camera here, but I have the Tower of London, a Big Ben and a red bus next to me
Oh,
here.
I'd like to see that.
It's a little faded by now, but I used to do a lot of elegant things for the classroom when I was teaching. And anyway, it's made out of soda. Remember how they probably still come in flats, in cardboard flats where the cans sit? And so I did a whole totem pole or 2 of them out of those. And then the Big Ben is also out of 2 or 3 boxes. It's, I mean, it's silly, but
You walk in
looks
there
good.
and she's got a big castle there from Ireland and you know other.
Oh, that's in the other room.
There's a
Yeah.
Big Ben.
Don,
Got a Big Ben model.
question. Okay, that's not a live view behind you, is it, Don?
me? Oh no, that actually was taken by one of my trail cams about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
That's a cat. We have a couple of bobcats who live on property. We call this one Mr. Bobcat, and haven't seen him in about a week. But bobcat season's over, and I found his tracks elsewhere on the property, so I'm trying to get another webcam up to, or trail cam up to spot him. But no, that was one of his few daylight appearances.
They don't normally come out in the daytime.
They will come out in early morning or late evening before they go out for hunting. But we got, almost 2 feet of snow here. And at that point, Mr. Bobcat stopped patrolling.
Where are
It's
you located?
just too much work. Pardon me? I'm in Vermont.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you got my friend up by Saratoga. They got wiped with snow.
Oh yeah, right now. It's been thawing. It's been above 40 most of the week, and I've got about 4 inches left on the ground out there now. It got up to 2 feet on the ground at one point.
Yeah, I've got to pump water out of my pool, about 2,000 gallons of water.
Yeah.
Where I am here at 72 and sunny right now.
Hate
Well,
you.
I have to run, and next week I think we're going to be back to the 64 World's Fair in movies. So I've got a bunch of those I'm working on, and a big heavy box showed up today, so I got to go see what's in that. So
More
Bill,
films.
real quick,
yeah,
that email I sent you, the
Yeah.
previous one that I sent the day before, I think it was.
right,
If you haven't thrown that away, read the email itself. You don't open the document because the newer document is in the second email, but
Great,
read the first part if you haven't already.
Yeah, I still have them both. Well, like I
Okay,
said,
yeah.
I had a really crazy week, so I was running way behind on stuff.
No, that's fine. There's no rush on it. I just wanted you to make sure because I said you can delete the old one, but it was like, no, I guess I did. You should read the email because you'll see why when you read it, and we can talk about it.
Great. And
Okay.
Thursday at 8 Eastern, I'm doing part 2 of my 5-part talk on the 64 World's Fair. I know some people came to part 1. Hopefully they'll come back for part 2. And it was interesting. I got a nice note from somebody that as soon as the thing ended, he went off and bought all 3 of my 64 World's Fair books. But then he sent me a note saying he had gone to, I forget what town he was from. He went to New York for the World's Fair, and he came down sick, and they had to spend the entire weekend in the hotel room with him sick. So his brothers were mad because he never got to the World's Fair. But he said after going to talk, he now feels like he'd actually been at the World's Fair. So it was kind of nice that he said all these years he's wanted to learn more about it. So I forget which land or area I'm doing this week, but I'll be starting that about 3 o'clock this afternoon, picking the pictures for it. So
Bill,
do you have to register for that?
what's that?
Do you have to register? Is there a fee or?
Yeah, they charge $12 for the program, which ran about an hour and 45 minutes, and then you can download them and watch them for a week. The program runs for 5 weeks, and then you can watch it through the 6th week, this sort of thing. So again, if you've been on these talks, you've probably heard most of it, but I tried, for example, I think, say for the Alaska Pavilion, I probably had 12, 14 pictures of that pavilion, and some of them you can go into more depth than others, that sort of thing. But I enjoy it. It's a nice chance to get it all out of the vault and do something with it. Sorry, Don, you had something?
Just a question for you. In your dealings with the New York Explorers Club or Adventures Club, you ever come across a guy named Richard Garrett?
Not offhand, but I've only dealt with the same half dozen people over and over. By the way, if you not just plugging the Adventure Club, because they do pay me to do these things, which is nice, but they seem to be a really good outfit. I mean, literally, I'll do something on Thursday and they'll pay you for it on Friday. I mean, they seem to be very, very above board. And the guy, when I first did it, I said, okay, I've done these talks before. And then I got the check. I said, well, that was nice, I mean, and then he said, can you do more? And, it takes a lot of time to put it together. I'll put about 12 hours into putting it together for the talk on Thursday. Because again, which shot of the New Jersey pavilion from the top of the New York State pavilion do you pick, but it's fun for me to dive back into it and do it. And they have quite a few other things. I've gone to a couple of their other talks, and there was only one that I ever went to that I thought was boring as hell. The guy was like, the guy in Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was like, here we have a shot of the 1804 World's Fair.
Oh.
It was on a plot of land, So for me, I mean, I had to race through this. On Thursday, I used 328 PowerPoint slides in an hour and 45 minutes. So I had a, you know, I mean, some of them you put up real quick. You know, you say they had, you know, cattle at the fair, click. They brought in live elk from the fair, you know, from Montana, and they even had what you call it, beaver, but this one's stuff. You know, you can go through it fairly quick. But that one guy, oh, it was terrible.
The reason I asked you about Richard was actually he used to do something here in Austin called Britannia Manor, which was the world's largest haunted house. We had people waiting for over a week in line to get in. And I met my wife through working on Britannia Manor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's very wealthy, and he took his entire mansion, and over 6 weeks, we had 300 people working on this hour-and-a-half long interactive haunted house. So he's the head of the Adventurers Club now, as far as I know. So really nice guy if you come across him.
Yeah, this guy that I work with, that's not his name, a different guy.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't know if you would come across him. Richard is very public facing of that. So I doubt you see him, but I decided to ask. I haven't seen Richard in, you know, probably 20 years, but he's a nice guy.
you know, what's interesting, real quick before you go, they give you the poll. When people take the thing, they can poll them, and you get the answers. And the first week I get it, and it says, you know, anything you didn't, you know, it's rated on a scale of 1 to 5. And the guy rates something a 1. I said, what the hell did I do wrong? And he says, it was too short. I wanted more of it, or something like that. Oh, okay. Well, 2 hours wasn't enough. Well, last week I got really bummed out. I did one on Expo 67, and you look at it, and some people, I look at one, the guy says, the presenter was a disorganized mess. And everybody else says, I loved it. I felt I was there. And, you know, so you get like 12 people that are giving you 5 out of 5, and one guy gives you 2. And you go, what the hell? And Carol had to tell me, you can't please all the people all the time. I said, I don't want to please to kill them. But
that's why I take Yelp reviews with a grain of salt.
Oh, my son talks about that all the time. You know, I went to the restaurant, the parking was so bad I couldn't even park there, so I'm giving it a 1. You know,
That's how you just
food in the world.
Like,
You know,
just real quick, when I went to Expo 2010 in Shanghai, I booked a hotel, you know, on hotels.com or whatever, you know, and I have no idea, you know, where it is in town, or, you know, the pictures look nice, but, you know, who knows if that's really the hotel. And I was reading the reviews, and it was like nothing but a brothel. And I'm like, oh God, did I make a mistake? But, you know, I was getting too late to look anywhere else. And we got there. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful hotel.
Was there a girl in the closet?
No, actually, what they must have been talking about, every time late at night when you'd be coming back, you were inundated with prostitutes, you know, like the next block from the hotel, you know, phony Rolex salesmen, that kind of stuff. So the hotel was absolutely great.
Yeah. I try to leave positive Yelp reviews when I've had a particularly good experience, because everybody always gets mad and takes the time to say something. You know, matter of fact, we were at the other day, about 2 weeks ago, we stopped at a Wendy's, and after had something to eat, I walked up and asked if the manager was there, and the cashier was, oh God, what did I do? I just said, I wanted to say, you know, that your cashier is really good. So we were having a discussion about, you know, what to get. My wife was unable to decide. He was very patient explaining stuff, and he really went out of his way to do a nice job. And she goes, oh, great. Could you put that in on, you know, there's a thing in the back of the receipt to tell corporate. I said, yeah, I'll go home and do that. But I said, I know everybody bitches about everything that you don't like, you know, and so I try to figure out. Someday he's going to say, Bill, you really directed traffic at that accident very well, but so far.
That's one of the first things they tell you in flight attendant training is you'll hear if you do something wrong, but you won't hear if you do something, you know, great. Yeah.
So, well, great. Hope to see you folks next week, and good luck with your fire warnings.
Hey, see you
Thanks,
next
Bill.
week.
Thanks, Derek, for posting that picture.
Be safe.